Welcome back to my channel, everybody. This is a video where I recorded myself making, I would say it's probably my 5th cowboy hat now. This felt is a 160 gram chocolate brown felt from Millinery Warehouse.com, and no sponsorship or anything. I just really like their products. And so after I had it on the steam for a little while, I put it on my block and then started getting it ironed out and getting it formed over the block. And then I put my tie block on there, and I like to start about halfway and then iron the rest of it down to where it forms just nicely. As it gets closer to the base of that block, I do start ironing the brim to really emphasize that brim break between the crown and the brim. So now I'm pushing the string down to the base of the hat block there, and I'm also trying to make sure that it's even all the way around. That way the hat doesn't turn out looking weird or wonky or anything of that nature. I did spend some time ironing out the brim, but as you can see, it's still a little wavy, and I'm totally fine with that for now. Just was trying to get the crown formed over the block correctly. So now I'm really going to try to work on the brim and get it completely flattened out so that I can cut it and shape it later on. After that, it's time to start sanding it. So I like to use a little bit thicker grit. I'm not really sure how thick the one I'm using in this video is, but it's thick enough to where it takes off enough so that there's not any super rough patches or anything around the hat. And it really gives it a smooth finish over the entire hat whenever we get to the end of this. So now I take off my string here and keep going around and just keep sanding. And I really don't have a gauge on how long I sand for. I just usually keep sanding until I'm satisfied with how it looks all the way around. I'll keep a vacuum handy to suck up all of those loose pieces so that I can take a look at the felt and make sure all of it looks fine. And now it's time to cut the brim. And I usually use like a tape measure and a little white pencil that I have there. I got that in a little sewing kit from Hobby Lobby. It comes in handy for this, for like dark felts like this, to where it's like a regular pencil would never show up. I used to use that and that never worked. But so for my cowboy hats, I like to go with about, I think I did this around 3 1/4 is how long I like to make my brims for my cowboy hats that I like to make. I just feel like a shorter brim makes it a little more compact looking and better for you know, a dress up outfit that you would wear like with boots and jeans and like a cowboy button down or plaid or whatever. I still would like to someday make a cowboy hat with a wider brim, but for now I just kind of go with a shorter brim. And I love this little wheel cutter that I have that at first I thought would just score the felt to where I could just cut it completely off with scissors. But whenever I started using it, this thing cuts down to the wood. And I mean, if you look closely at my wood, there's circles, you know, cut into the wood. So that's how deep it goes. It's pretty wild. And I've used this cutter on all my hats so far, except for maybe the first couple, and it's still cutting very well. So, and this is, like I said, 160 gram felt. So now I have my thinner, it's like less gritty sandpaper that I'll use to finish sanding out the brim there and making sure it's got that super, you know, smooth finish over it. And I've gotten into the habit of, in my sanding, sanding the edge of the brim there. As you can see, it kind of gives it a sharpness to it that I like, and less of a chopped off look. If you guys have any thoughts in the comments of like, if this is a good idea, maybe not a good idea, let me know. I'd love to hear it, just to see what other observations are out there of this. And yeah, I'd love to hear them. Once the sanding is all done, I usually move on to putting the sweatband in. So what I'll do is I'll take it and get a really rough measurement on the inside of it to see where I need to cut it. And you want to be careful in this part because you can always cut off more, and you definitely can't add more to a sweatband. So I'll pull the reed line out just a little bit, just enough for me to make my cut on the sweatband at the correct size that I need. And then I like to push the reed back through, and then I'll double check that size on the inside. And then after I make sure I got the right size, what I like to do is push my reed lines. I usually leave about ½ an inch sticking out on each side, and I'll stick those to where they overlap on top of each other. Now this is not the best way to do this, I admit. Of course, I'm not doing it correctly. What I should be using is, how do I say this right? Furls, I think is what they're called. And you basically pinch them onto the reed lines. I actually just got mine in the mail recently, and I plan to use them on my next video for my next hat that I'm going to make, which is going to be a cowboy hat, and I'm going to use those furls. So I'll let y'all know how that goes, and yeah, it'll make it better for the sweatband and just make it to where that's how it should be made. So but in my video here, for now, I'm just overlapping the reed lines, and then while they're holding together, I am using a fork to punch my holes through, so that way it makes it easier for me to stick my needle through in order to sew the sweatband together. For my sweatbands, I like to go in a zigzag formation. So I'll just go ahead and pull it all the way through there, and then I'll go to the hole below it on the other side, all the way down, and then I will, once I get all the way down the sweatband on one side, I'll loop it through and then go back up through the other holes I didn't go through, and that makes it do that zigzag shape that I will show y'all here in a second. Now that I'm at the end here, what I'll do is I'll take it and basically just tie a knot in it there at the bottom. I am not completely sure how you end off sewing anything, actually. So if anyone has any ideas, drop them in the comments, or any helpful videos that would show that. But I basically just tie a knot in the end of it. I'll cut it, and then I'll actually, for this nylon thread I'll get a lighter and light the ends so that they don't fray out. And now I'm including the little bow here that identifies the rear of the hat, so that whenever you put it on, the bow goes to the back. Bow always goes to the back. Now that the sweatband is sewn together, it's time to sew the sweatband into the hat itself. So once I get it lined up, this part is a little tricky. What I basically do is I just hold the entire hat up to right in front of my face, and then slowly tilt it down, and I can usually tell if it's off at all. I do eyeball this part, so just kind of bring it down slowly, and any kind of adjusting I need to do, I'll adjust it, and then go from there. So what I've recently started doing, and I believe this is called basting or basting, or however you would say that, and I'm pretty sure it's whenever you take the needle and thread and you go around the hat like, I don't know, an inch or so onto the inside and then the outside, just looping it all the way through the hat. This basically holds the sweatband in place, and this is what's helped me. I mean, I don't even know if I'm doing it completely correctly or not, but it has helped me be able to sew my sweatbands in properly, because before I was stitching in the ditch, which is what I'm doing now, but I was doing it like for the final part of making the hat, and it's not the best way to sew in the sweatband. They have a little flap on the inside of the sweatband where that's where you sew it in, like if you had a sewing machine like a 361 that could sew in sweatbands and hats. But I don't have one of those, but what I'm doing now is just poking the needle through into the ditch there of the sweatband, which is basically between the leather. It's in between the leather and the reed line that runs throughout the hat. So now that I got that completely sewn in, it looks like it's done, but it's definitely far from done, because this thread is just holding in the sweatband and it's not doing anything else. And I have it sort of belled out there, which is the proper way to install your sweatbands. It may not be exactly correct there because I don't have my furls for the sweatband, but I just get it as close as I can for now. Like I've said in every video, just trying to get every hat better than the last one I made, and that just comes with proper sewing and then eventually proper tools as well. So this is where I'm going to start sewing it in, actually sewing in the sweatband. I turn it out like that, and then I basically just start sewing. I think I start from the outside going in or inside going out. I honestly don't remember. Either way, I try to put my loops on the inside of the hat. So like I'll put it through one way, put it through the other way, put it back through, and then go through my loop that I leave on the inside, if that makes sense at all. And I do that all the way around the hat. It's pretty tedious, but it's how I feel comfortable sewing in my sweatbands, because there's nothing worse than, I'm sure, wearing a hat over time and then the sweatband starts falling out because it's not properly sewn in. That would be really disappointing. After that, I will go ahead and get a measurement. There you go, as you can see there, that's how my sweatband looks after I actually put it back on my block. That's how I got the sweatband looking smooth again. And then I sort of ironed it out with some steam. And that's where I sewed my sweatband in. You can see all my stitch lines there. I think you can see it's a little bit difficult to see because the thread is almost the same color as the felt. But what I'm doing here is I'm going to insert my hat stretcher because I don't really want this hat to be an oval shape like my hat block was. So I'll stick this in here. I need it to be a round shape because this hat is for my father-in-law, and he already has a hat that I was able to get the size out of, the head size out of for him for his birthday. And he's got kind of a rounder head, more or less than mine, where I kind of have an oval shaped head. So what I'm doing is going to stretch this thing out a little bit so that hopefully it fits his head correctly. So after getting it adjusted just right, I'll take my tape measure here and I will go around the top, and then obviously just making sure that it's the correct size. I kind of have the habit on this step to stretch it a little bit farther than the actual size that I'm going for, to account for any kind of shrinking that may occur during this process. So, and then of course with the sweatband in there, it may take away some of the size as well. So that's another thing to account for. So after I know I have the correct size, I'll flip it back over. And as you can see, whenever I do flip it back over, you can see how the brim has got some waves going on. So simple way, obviously, to fix this, I'm just gonna take my iron, just re-iron out the brim, and then get it ready for shaping. So now that the brim is more malleable, I'm going to start shaping that part first. And I've actually never done it this way. I usually will shape the crown first and then the brim. I don't really know why I did the brim first. I think it was probably because I got a little excited to try this new way of brim shaping that I haven't done before. just kind of holding it. I've seen other hatters do it this way, and I was intrigued by it, and so I figured I'd try it myself by just holding it up to my chest and then kind of just bending it up. And as you can see, I mean, it's looking really good, and I'm actually really liking the way it's looking. This is the only hat that I've ever done it this way, so figured I would give it a shot. So now that I've removed my hat stretcher, I am going to start shaping the crown. And I'm just doing my regular, I think it was like a teardrop shape that I usually do for cowboy hats. So I'm gonna do the same thing with this hat. And the trick here is to find the center of the hat, make sure the crease lines up just right with the front of the hat. It can be a little tricky sometimes, kind of gotta start over and then just keep shaping it until it gets close. And I do like to use steam frequently so that it holds its shape. So I'll steam before, I'll shape, and then I'll steam after so that it holds its shape. That way it remembers the shape I'm trying to get it to, and then hopefully hold it. So I'm just going all the way around. You can kind of see that teardrop shape forming there. Now I'm applying more steam, and I've got my hat block there. That's the smallest size that I have, and I like to use that size to form the top there. After finishing off with that tight pinch there that I was going for, I was really happy with the way this hat shape turned out. Okay, so maybe I wasn't completely happy with the shape, so I got a little carried away and did a little more bending on the brim so that hopefully it would kind of more fall into place and not get too flattened out or anything. So yeah. Next is going to be the hat band. This is a super affordable hat band that I got from Amazon. It looks really, really nice for the price that it's at, and I've used it. This is probably the third hat that I've used it on, and I just really, really like the way it looks. If I ever make myself one of these hats, I'll definitely be using one of these sweatbands. So what I'll do is I'll bring it around, get my size. It's kind of like doing the sweatband, kind of the same steps. You just get the right size that you need and you just cut, but you always cut longer because you can always cut off more, but you can never add more. So rule of thumb there. And so now I am doing my final cut. I had the bright idea to grab my lamp and provide some much better lighting so that y'all can see exactly what I'm doing here. And it's really not complicated at all. Just pretty much straightforward. Just measuring, cutting, and this hat band comes with a little snap-on piece that snaps on the back part of it, and that's what holds it together. So after pre-making my hole, I'll get the little pin, go ahead and snap it together, and then slide it on the hat. Thankfully, it's a perfect fit, and I usually don't leave my hat bands just slid onto my hat. I like to secure them somehow. So I'll usually just get a piece of thread and I'll thread it in 2 or 3 places. I usually do 3 places, I think, just to make sure that the sweatband doesn't move. And it's super easy. I just go from the inside, poke the needle through around a discrete place where the thread won't be noticed from looking at the outside of the band there. And usually just one piece of thread does the trick. Tie it off on the inside and then repeat 2 more times. And like I said earlier, I do like to burn the ends of my thread for this thread because I think it's mostly nylon or some kind of material that frays easily, but it's really strong, so that's why I like to use it for this. But yeah, I'll usually burn the ends, and it just kind of makes it roll up and then makes it to where it won't fray. And that is the end of this video, and this is the final product. I'm really happy with it, and I think my father-in-law is really gonna like it, but only if it fits his head. That's what counts. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, and I will see y'all on the next video. Thanks so much for watching.